Greetings, Rommies, and welcome to WromComms, the podcast sharing the joy of sim racing and motorsports. Welcome. Thanks for stopping by. I am your always on time, always here host, Cody, and I am joined by Serta.
Hi, mate. How are you?
We're doing good. So this time it's not me that's late or absent. We are missing Eike right now. But we are missing Eike because he was, or maybe still is, at Oulton Park doing some very, very cool motorsport things. So we wish him all the best in that, and we hope he hurries back.
He said he wanted to try to secure a drive, so maybe he's driving through Oulton Park, and more power to him if he is.
Wow, there has been a lot going on this month in sim racing. Holy cow. We have a lot we'll dive into out of this, but first off, I want to say we're going to Sim Racing Expo.
Yep.
So we went last year, we covered Sim Racing Expo last year, and we are going again this year. It is right around the corner at the time of recording this. It is next week. Very, very excited for that.
Yeah, but for most who are listening to this as podcast, and if they're listening on Thursday evening when we release it, you guys are gonna already be in Dortmund, and I'm gonna be finishing packing up and going on Friday morning, early morning to Dortmund. So if you're listening to this after Thursday, like Friday or so, we're not there. We are voices that are not in front of their microphones anymore.
Yeah, I suppose so. There is a star-studded lineup of exhibitors, although, Serta, I know you have some opinions about the lineup, but a lot of the big players who were there last year are here again this year. Assetto SimSports came with a massive showing last year, and they are coming back. And then we have Asher Racing, we have Track Time, we have Race Room. Those are all under the same family. Yeah, so they're all also returning. And then we have a few other new ones of note. I think that SimRacingPro.com, they're a new one, right?
Yep.
SimMagic. Were they there last year? I don't think so.
Nope. Not that I... No, I think they had planned, and then like 2 weeks before going, they didn't. Something like that. Remember there was this big place in the middle of the Sim Racing Expo last year that was completely empty. I think that's where they were planned to be, and somehow at the last minute they didn't. But Cube Controls is not going to be there. SimuCube is not going to be there. Gomez Sim is not going to be there.
Which makes me a little bit sad, because I was expecting and hoping to see my fellow Dallasites to make the trip over with me.
Fanatic, I think, only said there, or they didn't say it. The Sim Racing Expo said Fanatic is going to be there like something like last week, which is very late if we think about which builds up normally Fanatic comes with. So maybe they're coming with a smaller presence this time. It's, I don't know.
Thrustmaster also notably absent.
Well, they weren't there last year. Who were there last year was Logitech.
That was it. That was it. Yeah, that's huge, because the wheelbase manufacturers, which I was surprised the Thrustmaster was not there last year, but remembering that they weren't there last year, that makes a bit more sense. But looks like the only wheel manufacturers that will be there, not the only rim manufacturers of the actual steering wheel that you're holding, the only wheelbase manufacturers that will be there seems to be Fanatic and PXN, which seems to be more on the budget side, PXN.
And Assetto. Remember, Assetto also does wheelbases, amongst many other things.
Oh, you're absolutely right. So I retract the only Fanatic. But my goodness, Assetto does so many things as a whole that it's easy to lose any like one, or I think it's 3 SKUs of wheelbase that they have. But yeah, good to remember.
I get the impression that it's gonna be smaller, like maybe not in square meters planned, but in square meters occupied. I may be wrong, but that's the impression that I'm getting.
Well, we shall certainly find out. It looks like there's a little under 40 listed on the website, and then we have Fanatics, so take whatever that is plus one, because they're not on the website just yet. So last year, I can't remember the exact number of booths, but if I had to place it, it would probably be around or a little above that number, so I think it is smaller. The biggest thing is some of the big players, like Logitech, who takes up a whole bunch of room with their booths, notably absent. So that's going to, I think, leave a hole that we will see and miss, certainly.
Yeah, let's see. I mean, we have a lot of interviews scheduled with different companies, new companies that are being there for the first time, but also companies that were there already. Oh, another one that is missing, very much missing, and they've been the Sim Racing Expo every year, at least since 2018, are Huizingveld.
Oh, yeah, that is a notable absence. Yeah, they were there last year. We had a very good conversation with them. Yeah, I'll miss them. Damn.
Yeah, so it's a strange mix of who's there and who's not.
Yeah, but it does seem like a lot of the slack has been picked up by a lot of smaller sim companies that you might have never heard of. Like Conspit is looks like a wheel and pedal manufacturer, and I think also chassis. They do whole seats, that sort of thing. I have never heard of them before, and so it'll be interesting to see some of the new players like that. We will be bringing that to you in person. We'll be covering that, taking a look at that sort of stuff, getting our hands on Conspit stuff for the first time. So, another one notably absent. They had the live pedals last year. My goodness, why is the name
Simulcube?
Simulcube, yeah, they're not listed as well. So
nope, they're not going to be there. I talked to them and they said we're not interested this time. We're mostly pivoting towards the USA, and therefore we're not going to be at the Sim Racing Expo, and that's something that we do explicitly. There are a couple of other Sim Racing Expos in Europe next year, not this year, and they may be there, and one of them we're already planning, but we're not saying more. We're already planning to go there. At least I'm gonna be there. Ike, if he can organize it. You flying from Texas, I don't think that you want to be living half of your life here in Europe, but
well, not that I wouldn't want to live half of my life there in Europe. Maybe a little under half of my life there in Europe, so that I can, still work and make my American salaries. But yeah, we'll see. That is to be determined. But certainly, I like to travel, so we'll see. We'll not rule it out just yet. But enough about me. I do want to note that there are a few odd choices for accepted vendors at Sim Racing Expo, but nonetheless I'm excited to see what they do and how they plan to tie that into sim racing, if at all. Last year we had Nintendo, which was a very unexpected but welcome addition. They brought a trailer, and in it they had like a whole bunch of Mario Kart stuff hooked up. And that was a little bit bizarre for Sim Racing Expo. It's usually a little bit more sim racing focused.
Although ImSim had their Mario Kart rig, remember?
Yeah, ImSim also not going to be here.
Yes, they are. Yes, they are.
Are they?
The Sim Racing Expo announced them on LinkedIn.
Okay.
But they're not in the website. I agree with you. The website is lagging behind.
Gotcha. Let's see. We also have Grid Finder. We have Walk-E is a
that has as much to do with sim racing as I have to do with, I don't know, Elon Musk.
For those unfamiliar, as I would be, and most people would be, they are as far as I'm aware, European market only electric stroller attachment, like baby stroller attachment, where you stand on the back of it and it goes. So that's an interesting choice to have at Sim Racing Expo, I guess. I'm trying to find some sort of logic to that, but I don't know. Do they assume that people into sim racing all have young children, or I don't understand.
If they do, they haven't been to any Sim Racing Expo in the last years, because I didn't see many young or older people with strollers there or who looked like having strollers. So I don't think that's gonna find its audience there, but what do I know? Maybe they know something more than I do.
Some bizarre choices, to say the least. That is, I think, by far the most bizarre. Most of these other ones are at least mostly sim racing related, at least sim racing adjacent. You know, of course, Grid Finder, everyone knows how that would relate, but, you know, Walk-E, maybe not. Oh, we did not cover this, but venue change. We are not in Nuremberg as we were last year. We are now in Dortmund.
And according to Sim Racing Expo, they have a 5-year contract with Dortmund.
Yeah, so we'll see how this goes because we'll be there again next year. So I think that about covers Sim Racing Expo 2023, but I will end off this topic with a discussion question. Serta, what are you most excited to see at Sim Racing Expo?
There's this company, Race at Home, that has a moving rig, but not only that, they move the rig to the side. So when you're oversteering or understeering, they're gonna move that in a way that it simulates a little bit that movement, and you can use your body, so to speak, to know what the car is doing. I want to jump into that and find out if it can transmit this kind of driving feeling, at least a little bit. I know that ImSim has similar things. One of their rigs moves to the side, and that kind of gave me a feeling. I want to know if this new one, Race at Home, is going to be doing the same or even better.
Awesome. Yeah, I am very... So I have two that I'm very excited for, on two very different spectrums of why I'm excited for them. And excited is an interesting word, and you'll see why. So for one, I am excited to see Moser Racing because I was expecting to see them there last year. I really wanted to get my hands on their wheels, on their rims especially, right? But I did not get the chance last year at Sim Racing Expo. But this year, hopefully I can do that, test that stuff out in the hand, see how it feels. And then the other one, you're going to think I'm crazy for this, but PXN. I want to see what PXN's offerings are because, not that I personally would be a buyer, but they seem like a price attractive budget option for people looking to get into sim racing, which is always an important thing. You know, getting new people into the hobby, into the sport is awesome because you never know where the next bit of greatness is going to come from. And PXN is priced competitively. Their quality, I'm sure, can be beat, but at that price point, you know, I'm sure it would be an attractive option for parents going to Micro Center for their techie kid and looking and going, oh, you know, Johnny might like this, I'll get him this. And then maybe that sparks a love for sim racing. So I want to try those. I expect to be disappointed by the quality, but I'll just say I'm going in with the expectation that it is a budget option. And I'm curious how that fares. Could I recommend it to someone who's like, hey, I want to start in on sim racing as cheap as possible? So curious to see that.
Budget doesn't mean bad. I mean, we have tested already two of the Camus wheels, which are priced very competitively, and they are quite good. They are much better than you would expect for that price.
Right. So I'm looking to see if if they're that. Or if they're not.
And let's not forget, we're having an extra podcast for the Sim Racing Expo, which I hope I can have ready and uploaded on Sunday, but maybe it'll take a day longer. And of course, at least one news extra for the Sim Racing Expo during the week.
So, moving on, we have a release window for Assetto Corsa 2.
Somebody in an investor meeting mentioned a release window. Let's be a little bit precise because it was not an official information by Kunos, but it was an official information, or at least a slide in a PowerPoint in an investor meeting by, what are they called again?
Digital Bros. So we'll get into that. So Assetto Corsa 2, it is the anticipated sequel to the widely popular Assetto Corsa, which was developed by Kunos Simulazione and released in December of 2014. And throughout the years, it's developed a reputation of being incredibly moddable. The community has brought in tens of thousands of cars, thousands of tracks. They've brought in missing features that over the years since its release, we've come to expect from Sims, like rain, full day and night, engine mapping for, just everything that, was not included in the fairly bare bones, but a fantastic base Assetto Corsa. And of course, I know Eike, if he were here, would be screaming at me like, it's not a fantastic base, but hey, it's my show right now, and I get to say it, and you can not be late next time. So from last year, we already know from an interview with Marco Massaruto, who is the executive manager of Kunos, that like the first Assetto Corsa, it will run on a scratch-built in-house engine from Kunos. It will most likely not be the same engine as Assetto Corsa, the first one. And then it will not use Unreal Engine like Assetto Corsa Competizione.
Exactly. And as far as I understood that conversation, it's really going to be made from scratch. And I suppose they're going to use the knowledge that they had from Assetto Corsa, and they're going to use the knowledge they've earned around the physics from Assetto Corsa Competizione. But it seems, based on that conversation, that the code is going to be completely new.
Yeah, that checks out with what I recall as well. So, why this is a news topic. We've brought you up to speed. So the parent company of Kunos, Digital Bros, they released a financial disclosure, and in it, they now say that the PC release is set for spring of 2024. It was tentatively stated that we're looking at 2024 for this, but now they're saying, this is our deadline, we are releasing it in spring of 2024, which frankly is sooner than I had expected. I was expecting if they were going to put it out there into the world that it would be, late 2024, that sort of thing. Because they haven't said anything officially, publicly from the Kunos channels. We had that interview that says, hey, just so you know, this is coming in the future. We have this internal focused financial disclosure that says, spring 2024. So we're running off of that. That is almost a decade after the original Assetto Corsa came out, and it is 5 years to the quarter after Assetto Corsa Competizione. So we're looking at establishing a pattern now of releases every 5 years.
Computers have evolved a lot since then. GPUs have evolved a lot since then. Let's see what they come up with.
AI has evolved a lot since then.
The AI of Assetto Corsa is really. If you're not using CSP, the AI is really.
Yes, and if you are using CSP, the AI is better, but still lags behind some other more modern sims.
Ilya can only work with what he finds, and what he finds is...
Yes, Ilya Dusupov, by the way, he's the person who runs Custom Shaders Patch, which is, as well as Content Manager for Assetto Corsa, which both of which are known as, must-haves in order to get the full experience of what Assetto Corsa has become.
Absolutely.
So, Assetto Corsa 2 is not confirmed for consoles, but we do think that it is highly likely that it will make its way to consoles. So Assetto Corsa Competizione is on console, Assetto Corsa is on console, and previously they have said that console-based Assetto Corsa accounted for 40% of their sales. So I can't imagine that they're going to skip out on that market. However, the original Assetto Corsa console release came 2 years after the PC release. It came in 2016. So it might be a while before we see Assetto Corsa 2 on your PS5s, your Xbox Series X, that sort of thing. So that would put it around 2025, probably into 2026. So if you're a console player, don't be asking for it for Christmas next year.
And if I remember correctly, for Assetto Corsa Competizione, it took them also almost a year, and what came out was not really up to standards.
Yes, that took a while. And I expect as well Assetto Corsa to have, or Assetto Corsa 2 to have the same sort of post-launch support that Assetto Corsa Competizione has gotten, where it over many updates, has changed dramatically from being considered kind of rough around the edges to being just absolutely the definitive way to drive a GT3 or a GT4 car from the comfort of your home. How do you think Assetto Corsa 2 will need to differentiate itself versus its competition? And not only the modern sims, but how will it pull in the current large swath of Assetto Corsa players?
That's the $1 million question. I mean, getting the people that are invested in Assetto Corsa into Assetto Corsa 2 is going to be easy, because even if I love Assetto Corsa as you do, the physics are lacking. The tires only have one value and not the myriad of values that they have in Automobilista 2 or in R Factor 2. So the tire physics, I suppose, are going to be better, much better. And hopefully the AI also. And that already will pull many people if Assetto Corsa 2 is also moddable. Now, how in a world that has iRacing, that may have Rennsport, that has Automobilista 2, that has R Factor 2 if it survives that long, how they are going to be able to put their stake in the ground with that, it's going to be interesting. In my opinion, Automobilista 2 at the moment has the better physics. iRacing has the best online experience, the best multiplayer experience. And R Factor 2 had the better physics and now has people... Well, R Factor 2 has a good endurance experience.
They have good bones. We'll call it that.
Yeah, and a great endurance experience. So you need to... I think nowadays, in the state that sim racing is nowadays, one thing that they have to hit... And one thing that Automobilista 2 is having issues with is multiplayer. You have to be able to offer a multiplayer experience that is easy to set up, an easy server setup, although Assetto Corsa already had that, and lets people drive easily. If they also offer something like iRacing that they themselves organize, great, but they tried that with Assetto Corsa Competizione and it didn't really pull. So I think that's going to be one. The other is most assuredly the graphics, but the graphics in Assetto Corsa Competizione I like. Because of the graphics engine, VR is not really good, but that's something that I think it's very special to Assetto Corsa Competizione. The VR setup and the working with VR that Assetto Corsa had was quite good. So they just should expand on that. I think physics and multiplayer are going to be the pull towards Assetto Corsa 2 if everything else stays similar to what Assetto Corsa had, which is being able to put a lot of mods and being able to do things around it like Assetto Corsa Evoluzione does and so on.
Yeah,
what do you
I definitely think that modability, at least for me, and probably for most others, is the key thing for Assetto Corsa that sets it apart from the other modern sims. People say, oh, well, Assetto Corsa is, there's so many things that you have to install to get the full experience, that sort of thing. But once you follow those tutorials, you can just infinitely expand it with whatever you want to add, because people have really created content around everything. It's the only sim where you can drive Trans Am, where you can drive both like modern and vintage Trans Am at the same time. It's the only place where you could do 1960s Formula One cars in a multi-class race with like Soviet Formula 3 cars. Like, there is so much content already made for Assetto Corsa.
And let's not forget, you can drift, you can race rallies, you can do toge, you could even do what's it called? The one where they drive straight in high
drag
speeds,
racing.
high torque, drag racing. So it's so open to everything that you can do a lot of things. They're even doing no hezzy driving with that, or even completely normal traffic driving. It's so open to all the possibilities that you can do driving something, anything, that I do hope that Assetto Corsa 2 brings that too. While I'm not a drifter, I realize that there's not many opportunities out there to sim drift, and Assetto Corsa is one of them, and quite good and quite beloved because of that.
Absolutely, absolutely. So yeah, I think if they can maintain the spirit of what they have done with Assetto Corsa, where after release they released all of these things, like they had a modding pipeline. If you wanted to add your own content to the game, you followed the from the developer official post on the forum that was like, this is how you make more content for our game. And there was no cost associated to it. There's no license. You just drag the file in and you drop it. And if they can capture the spirit of that, I think Assetto Corsa 2 will be successful, and it will capture even the Assetto Corsa 1 crowd. That is, I think, their primary market.
And it's a big market. Assetto Corsa is still one of the most used sims out there, even more than Assetto Corsa Competizione, and only surpassed by BeamNG, which is a racing sim up to a point. Assetto Corsa may be Assetto Corsa 2's worst enemy if they don't take care of it. Yeah, agreed.
I also want to give a big shout out. Thank you very much to our patrons over at patreon.com/RomRom for their support and their ideas, and also to our members for their support here on YouTube. If you are a patron or a member of at least the Formula Ford driver or bronze level, then you will be able to hear us record the podcast, warts and all, and we'll be able to react and ask questions in our chat that we can react live to. So that's all the more reason to become a patron. You know what one of the other things that you can do unofficially in Assetto Corsa is? NASCAR oval racing. But, of course, they don't officially multiplayer. I've done Assetto Corsa multiplayer oval racing, and it is a fantastic experience. The AI, again, we've already talked about.
We commented an Indy 500 on Assetto Corsa a while ago, remember?
Yes, and it was a pretty good race.
Yeah, absolutely.
I bring up NASCAR because Motorsport Games has sold its exclusive NASCAR license to iRacing. So, for those unfamiliar...
For allegedly $5 million.
$5 million, there you go. So, for those unfamiliar with the Motorsport Games saga, the Motorsport Games, I know, it has been a saga. When I say saga, there is a lot to it. I'm going to gloss over this.
I said a while ago they're going to make it into a 3-season Netflix series.
No kidding. So, Motorsport Games was spun off as a subsidiary of Motorsport Network. Now, Motorsport Network, they're the parent company. Keep that in mind. They are doing fine. They have a wide range of things, but Motorsport Games operates independently but is owned by Motorsport Network. So they were created, Motorsport Games, to be a major player in sim racing. Basically, it was a bunch of venture capital coming in. We're going to buy up a lot of stuff. We're going to make some really, really cool stuff by bringing in our star power, buying these licenses, buying fantastic studios, and combining both of those to make fantastic standalone games that are going to make a crap load of money, and they're all going to be great, and they're all going to come out. That has been the promise.
And we're going to show races on those products in the Motorsport Network.
Yes. So that was the promise that they had. And so they bought Studio 397, the developers of R Factor 2. They bought KartCraft, which is a dedicated go-kart simulator. They bought the license to NASCAR. That's what we're talking about today.
Sorry, you were saying.
When they bought the majority of 704 Games, who's the creators of the recent NASCAR Heat games. And then they bought the exclusive licenses to the World Endurance Championship, the British Touring Car Championship, and IndyCar. So I want to be clear that that was all within the span of a couple years, and this was a lot of spending that was very expensive of them to do.
It sounds like a great strategy on paper, at least.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. If you could pull it off, you have, the licenses to all these great games. You come out with a new game, and then, the debt that you had from the previous, from buying the license, that gets paid off by, releasing this great game, and everyone goes and flocks to it, and there's a ton of money that comes in, right? And then you parlay the profits from that into the next game with the license that you have for that. So, we were going to have, they had this great roadmap that came out in like 2019 or 2020 where, everything was going to come out year by year by year, and we had development checkpoints where everything was going to be at. Well, that has not happened. So NASCAR 21 Ignition came out. We covered it on the channel in 2021. Yep. It was an absolute disaster. We will have the video of our first impressions linked below, where we could not even get basic features to run, like it hooking up to a very, very mass market Thrustmaster T300 RS wheel to even test out the wheel support. We could not get the aspect ratio to work right in the game. It was a major failure.
I called it the dumpster fire in the news on Sunday.
Yeah, so that was that was what set the stage. That was the first Motorsport Games game that came out. And that was based on rFactor 2. That wasn't even them creating a new engine. That was just them working with what they already owned. So, the British Touring Car Championship game probably will not survive. It was likely killed off whenever the content became rFactor 2 DLC. They took that
DLCs. They published the cars over many DLCs, and you still don't have all the tracks that make up the BTCC as official tracks in rFactor 2.
Yeah, and I think just to get all the cars, it's like $35. That's a game in and of itself,
Yeah.
Like the cost of it. IndyCar similarly made it to rFactor 2 as DLC with the Dallara IR18 appearing in 2022.
No, wait. The IR18 was not a DLC. It was offered in the workshop for free by Studio 397.
Okay, so they didn't even make money from that. So the game is still nowhere to be found, like BTCC. Both of these games, by the way, were slated to be out by now. BTCC, I think, was supposed to come out in like 2022. That very clearly never happened. They never announced that they were killing the game, but obviously 2022 came and went. Nothing happened. They still haven't said anything officially about its fate, except that they're exploring options, and IndyCar is still without a game for the last 19 years. The World Endurance Championship game, we now know to be called Le Mans Ultimate. It was uncertain, but now it looks to be coming out in December of 2023. That is on track for the 2023 release, but that was supposed to come out in 2022. And that didn't happen.
And so we had on our news on Sunday, I'm referring a lot to the news on Sunday, but that's the way it is. We had some live signs from Le Mans Ultimate as we got sent by their press people. We got sent a lot of images and an interview, or at least a conversation they had with their car designers. So it seems that it's at least being worked upon. On track, yes. I don't know, but being worked upon.
Also, a side note on Le Mans Ultimate, they have said, as the Alpine 424 hypercar and the Lamborghini hypercar are testing right now for the 2024 season, Le Mans Ultimate's Twitter page, I think it was, or X page, have confirmed that those cars will be coming to Le Mans Ultimate later on. So it looks like they are planning to support future seasons of the World Endurance Championship, which is fantastic to see. So they're making the right moves there with that, but the problem was, it was looking like we might not have even seen motorsport games last to the end of this year to see the release of Le Mans Ultimate. It could have been the most highly anticipated vaporware of all time in sim racing. In November of 2022, their entire board of directors resigned in protest from a change that Motorsport Network wanted to do. In April of this year, of 2023, CEO Dmitry Kosko stepped down, and Stephen Hood, who was the original president, who had been, I think...
complimented out, let's say it that way.
Let's say that originally he came back now as CEO, and just so you understand how they have fallen from grace, they IPO'd at $300 in 2021. Their all-time high was in early 2021 at $326 a share, and they now hover around $4 a share. So that specifically, in addition to everything that you have heard me catch you up to speed on, that means that they have been struggling really, really hard with liquid cash to fund their basic operations. So that means, in business terms, that they don't even have enough money to keep the lights on. So earlier this year, they said, and I quote, that we do not believe we have sufficient cash on hand to fund our operations for the remainder of the fiscal year 2023, and that additional funding will be required to continue operations. So basically, they had to say, we have to do something else to get money or we will die. So they were exploring different options, and they said whenever they released that they were shopping around the NASCAR license, and they were in talks with a buyer or two who was interested.
I mean, it's exactly what they did. They have found a small amount of water to keep the boat afloat.
Yes, so we now know who that buyer is. It is iRacing. And you guys have heard my opinions on iRacing. Great for everyone else, but I don't want to pay that, that sort of thing. But this excites me. This makes me happy. So the new license, this gives iRacing, the company, there's iRacing the software, there's iRacing the company that owns iRacing the software, right? So it gives iRacing the company the exclusive right to make the next standalone NASCAR game.
And that's an important point. Standalone game.
Yes, standalone game. So iRacing already has a deal with NASCAR. They've been, working on esports together. They've NASCAR,
been best buddies with NASCAR since,
together.
What is it, 2010 or something like that? So the relationship goes a long way and seems to be a very good working relationship.
Yes.
Oh, isn't Dale Earnhardt Jr. part of iRacing? Isn't he?
As a matter of fact, he is. He is the executive director of iRacing. So, of course, Dale Earnhardt Jr., big player in NASCAR, and I'm sure had a lot of sway in this decision. So, iRacing has announced, basically with the announcement of the license, that they are going to be releasing a, quotes, simulation-style NASCAR console game in 2025 with every driver and every track. And then they reiterated again everything. So they're committed to a full roster, they're committed to a full schedule, and they've given that deadline of 2025. So
but,
it will come.
Just to correct one thing, they plan to come out on Xbox, PlayStation, and Nintendo Switch, and on Steam. So it seems that there's going to be a PC version too.
Yes. Yeah. Simulation style NASCAR console game raised a lot of eyebrows initially.
Yeah.
But in their announcement video, they have the Steam logo next to PlayStation, Xbox, and Switch logos. This deal should give Motorsport Games that $5 million, which should, they say, be enough money to make it to the end of the year and release Le Mans Ultimate, which
they hope is going to give them enough money to survive until they release IndyCar 24.
Bingo. So they're continuing now. They're able to continue with their original fly by the seat of a successful game, but that does mean that they have one choke point, and that is the quality of Le Mans Ultimate. So, Motorsport Games, alive for another day, but let's see if they screw this up. And I sure hope that they do not screw this up because endurance racing, World Endurance Championship, and also by extension IMSA, those are my babies. Absolutely, that is the motorsport that I follow the most. So standalone game, I'm very excited for. I will be playing this on release. I will be reviewing
the Cadillac over and over and over again.
You know, as for hypercars, I'm more of a Porsche guy, I gotta say.
Okay.
Personally. I do love the sound of the Cadillac, though. It is the best sounding car on the grid. But, hey, Aston Martin's coming in, and they're coming in with a naturally aspirated V12. So we'll see how that shapes up as well. I'm excited for that. But anyways, iRacing owning NASCAR just makes sense. So they get
makes sense. It makes sense for motorsport games to sell that. On the other hand, as I said in the news on Sunday, I would be surprised if NASCAR didn't nudge motorsport games in the right direction.
Yeah, so Motorsport Games does have NASCAR Heat 5 as well as Ignition 2021, and I think something else NASCAR that's escaping my mind right now.
A mobile NASCAR game, if I remember correctly.
Okay, yeah, so that's the one. So they have committed to supporting those games at least through the end of 2024. So you can expect new updates for those games up until then. After that, no. It just makes sense because, of course, we mentioned Dale Earnhardt Jr., right? iRacing already hosts NASCAR esports. We could probably expect to see NASCAR esports moving to this new title and away
NASCAR
from
Rivals,
iRacing.
Nintendo Switch, that's the one.
That was it. Okay. But then I also want to draw attention to iRacing coming full circle a little bit here, which is really cool. So a history lesson for you. If the Motorsport Games history lesson was a depressing thing that made your head spin, well, this will be a nice feel-good moment. They began work on iRacing in 2004. It was created by a guy named David Kamer, and he created that after he left the legendary Papyrus Design Group, which he had co-founded in 1987. So Papyrus, in addition to Grand Prix Legends, which if you have been in sim racing a while, is a name that you will have a lot of nostalgia for, most likely. So they made GPL and every NASCAR racing game from 1994, which, hey, I had that on PC, and my PC couldn't run it, but I sure had the disc. And I sure looked at the pictures on the back of the jewel case, all the way up to NASCAR Racing 2003. So they made all of those titles for NASCAR in that time. And that last one, NASCAR Racing 2003, is regarded still to this day as the best standalone NASCAR simulation of all time. iRacing was built off of the original source code of NASCAR Racing 2003, and it retains some of its original physics, specifically
and if you
around...
ask me some of its original graphics, but let's not go there.
I would agree, but now that legendary, absolutely legendary piece of software, which eventually morphed in a roundabout way into iRacing, as well as some of the original team that developed NASCAR Racing 2003, is reunited with the NASCAR Game license almost exactly 20 years later, which is really, really cool. That's awesome. So it's really, really cool to see that. It does open some questions. So for this new simulation-style NASCAR console game that we're expecting, I'm curious what it might look like. What's next? And, what's the pricing model going to be?
What pertains to the graphics, I suppose they're going to use the iRacing designs that they have for the tracks and the cars, because they would be stupid if not. They did something similar with World of Outlaws, if I remember correctly, where they used a lot of the assets that they had from iRacing to do World of Outlaws. So I suppose they're going to do something similar. Take from iRacing what they can use and what makes sense to use. And I've been told that World of Outlaws is quite a good game. And yeah, put it inside of something that works as a game.
Yeah, I think that this is a fantastic move. And I think that this will get me to get back into oval sim racing if this is good, which by all means I think it will be, because if you want to race definitive ultimate NASCAR racing, you are either digging up a copy of NASCAR Racing 2003 and a lot of people do, or you are paying your subscription fee every month to do iRacing.
After selling 1 or 2 of your kidneys.
Precisely. And then also you're buying all of the cars that you're wanting to race for your oval racing, depending on what years of car you want to race.
And
then you
the
are buying, all of the tracks individually, might I add. So at that point, you are in the hole quite a bit, and then you're paying a subscription fee on top of that. So it is not budget friendly. It is not a kid who wants to play a NASCAR game friendly. Like NASCAR games used to be, and rightfully should be, where you could hop on the PS2 and play, NASCAR NASCAR 06 Total Team Control, or, NASCAR 2004, NASCAR Thunder, all of those 2000s and turn of the millennium NASCAR games that were fantastic. Of course, NASCAR Racing 2003 being one of them. That we have not had that in a good package in a while. NASCAR Heat, or the original ones, fantastic reputation. The more recent ones, they're there. And so, nothing has really touched the glory of NASCAR Racing 2003. And so I'm really excited for this. I hope that the pricing model will be you buy the game, you own the game. That sounds like a very obvious course for success. It is a way to drive iRacing quality of NASCAR oval racing, but not having to shell out all that money. It's a one-time purchase, hopefully.
They may go the way of Codemasters and publish NASCAR 25, then NASCAR 26, then NASCAR 27, then NASCAR 28, and so on and so on. So let's see how they plan to do it. If they plan to have something like we have today in sim racing, software as a service, you have a code base that gets updated regularly, and then DLCs that update through the seasons, like, I don't know, Race Room did for WTCR or something like that, or Assetto Corsa Competizione has done for the SRO. So let's see if they publish a game a year, or if they publish DLCs for one and the same game.
You know what? Maybe controversial take. I am A-okay if they publish a new game a year. I would obviously prefer the NASCAR DLC route that it looks like Le Mans Ultimate's going to take, that ACC has taken. That seems like the more popular way to go, but the F1 games, people buy them, they make a lot of money. Yeah. NASCAR used to do that back in the day. You bought your NASCAR 2003, you bought NASCAR 2004, you bought NASCAR 2005, so on and so forth, right? But you had those old games to go back to, and that's the really cool thing. If I want to drive the 2003 season, I can load up NASCAR Racing 2003. I have that nostalgia blast, I can drive the Gen 4 cars that, so many people grew up with. So
but your CPU is too fast, and that will make NASCAR 2003 too fast.
Well, there's ways around that. People have revitalized it of sorts, which I want to move on from that a little bit. Le Mans Ultimate now no longer has a dark cloud hanging above it. Motorsport Games, they seem committed to a full World Endurance Championship roster. Future DLC updates was something also that they mentioned to keep the roster active. And so it seems like maybe things are coming up roses for both NASCAR games and for Le Mans Ultimate and Motorsport Games. This is really good news for sim racing, because I am not a huge fan of motorsport games, but I certainly don't want to see them go under. I don't want to see, R Factor 2's Studio 397, go under, which is, part and parcel of motorsport games. So it's, it's interesting, but we had the talk a couple podcasts ago on, are we in golden times for sim racing? And I think that this deal that we've had, this very, very big news, is really, really good for the ecosystem of sim racing. I think more sims equals better. And this sounds like we're going to get more.
It for sure is a good strategy by Motorsport Games in the situation that they are in now. Yeah.
Yes, I'm sure they would have loved to be in a much better situation, but they are not. So as far as playing the hands that they have dealt, or playing with the hand that they have dealt, this is a good move. This is a really good move. So,
yeah.
Serta, would you like to pick a topic?
Last month, in the last podcast, I put a question out there, which was, what are your 3 most favorite racing movies? Unluckily, nobody in the comments responded, which surprised me. Maybe you don't like movies, but I put that there, and I'm sad that Eike is not here because he said, oh, I don't know much about movies. I have to inform myself. And I would have been very interested in his take. Do you have 3 most favorite movies, racing movies?
Speed Racer, Speed Racer, Speed Racer. Okay, so I am a massive Speed Racer, like the 2008 movie Speed Racer fan. It was the movie that I saw as a kid that was just so vibrant and vivid and stuck with me. Like, if you can trace my love of racing and the emotion that I feel whenever I think about what it is to race against somebody wheel to wheel, that movie captures the essence and the emotion of why I love racing and why I love motorsport. And it's just such a fantastical, color-filled adventure. It is amazing. Now, it is top 3. I'm not going to completely cheese it. My other 2 favorites, Fast and Furious Tokyo Drift, the only good Fast and Furious, fight me, and the 1971 film Le Mans, starring Steve McQueen.
Nice.
How about yours?
My 3 favorite of sorts, like I have more than those, and Le Mans would be in that list because Steve McQueen was a glorious actor. But my 3 top would be Rush, the Ron Howard movie with Chris Hemsworth and Daniel Brühl about Niki Lauda and James Hunt. Very well done. As far as I know, Daniel Brühl spent a couple of months with Niki Lauda learning his mannerisms, learning the way that he talked, and it shows. Daniel Brühl being an impressive actor by his own means. It's very well filmed, and it's a good way to spend the time. So I like that more than I was expecting to like it. It's a good movie by all means. Not that Ron Howard is a bad director. That was a given that it would be technically good. But I didn't expect it to be so well written and the story to flow the way it did. Another one which I know will divide many people is Talladega Nights, the Ballad of Ricky Bobby. I am a fan of Will Ferrell, and I know that already is something that some people are in favor, some not. I like his kind of humor. I like his wink, wink, I'm serious, but I'm not serious, but am I not being serious? I like that, and I think Talladega Nights pokes fun of especially Days of Thunder, which I thought it was kind of crap. It was like typical badly written racing movie. Talladega Nights pokes fun of that, but also pokes fun of a lot of things that should be poked fun, and it does it wonderfully. And I spent a lot of time laughing, also because not until I saw the credits rolling did I recognize Sacha Baron Cohen. And I was like, oh, that was him? Yikes. And the last one is one that I know because there is a game for it, and then I went searching for it. It's called Pinchcliffe Grand Prix. It's a stop motion movie. It's a kids movie, and it's about a group of peoples. One of them is something like a penguin building a car and racing in a car race. I love it because I love stop motion, and I love it because it's really well done. It's a movie from 1975, and it's great stop motion. It's great fun. It's a kids movie, but it's got the heart at the right place, and technically is well done.
Well, that is a very diverse group of movies. I like it.
Yeah, I could have gone with Ben-Hur, but that's not a racing movie.
It's got a racing scene. There's a little red car in the background.
Yeah, but it's true. And doesn't it have one of the Romans has a wristwatch or something like that?
That's hilarious. I would believe it. I will also say honorable mention, and this might be Eike's, but Ford versus Ferrari. Fantastic movie.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, my goodness.
Absolutely. Well done. And Christian Bale, do we need to say anything other than that?
Right.
Yeah. Honorable mention. If we would have made a top 10 instead of a top 5, it would have been in my top 10 for sure. Yes, absolutely.
I think for me, that one is about tied with 1971's Le Mans. It's definitely better story-wise than Le Mans 1971, but I like the story behind the creation of Le Mans, the movie. So,
I mean, if we're talking honorable mentions, the 1966 Grand Prix with James Garner and Yves Montand is also there for me.
I need to see that one. I haven't seen it yet.
And Luc Besson. And let me check one thing, because he did a racing movie based on comics.
Michel Vaillant?
Exactly, that one.
Yeah.
And it's by far not the best movie of all times, for sure. But it's a well done racing comic movie, let's put it this way. And it had some very clever ways of showing you the races. Of course, not realistic because it doesn't want to be.
That one is one that I have not seen. It might be... That one's in French, is it not?
No, I am not sure right now if I watched it. I normally watch the movies in the original version, and French and English are languages I understand. So right now, I cannot tell you if I saw it in French or in English. If it's done in French or in English, I mean, The Fifth Element was made in English. So
right.
Just because he is French, it doesn't mean that he makes movies only in French. And Leon the Professional was also made in English, if I remember correctly.
Gotcha. It sounds like we've about covered everything. We have done so without Eike, so we will miss him as y'all missed me last month. And
but he's got a better reason to not be here.
That's very true. Yeah, this dude's doing cool car stuff at Oulton Park, and we're here talking on a podcast. So, but all good, no worries. We should have a thing to ask folks about in the comments. So let's say, what is your favorite car? This is not your favorite car class. I want to know a specific car, and then
racing or car at all.
You know what? Let's limit this to race car, because everyone's going to go, oh, the car I drive is my favorite car. So yeah, what's your favorite race car?
The car I drive is not my favorite car. I'm going to be very happy when I get rid of my Hyundai Electric, but that's a different discussion.
But yeah, so let us know your favorite race car in the comments, and we might just give you a shout out. We did not have any from last month, so we'll go on ahead and sign off here. So subscribe so you don't miss the next episode, and until next time, save fuel, collect pickup, and we'll see each other on the podium.
Bye.